Making clear there's still a lot of details to come as we wait to see. And in a sign of just how quickly all of this came together, this was the president just a few hours ago.
I'll be meeting very shortly with President Putin. It would have been sooner, but I guess there's security arrangements that unfortunately people have to make. Otherwise, I'd do it much quicker. He would too. He'd like to meet as soon as possible. I agree with it. But we'll be announcing that very shortly.
Now, word of this meeting comes after President Trump's deadline for a peace deal came and went. The president has threatened secondary sanctions and tariffs. They have not been imposed as far as we know tonight as we come on the air. But that could be because we are learning more here tonight about the deal that the Russian leader reportedly presented to the president's foreign envoy, Steve Witkoff, when he was in Russia this week. According to what Putin proposed, the current battle lines would essentially freeze where they are right now for the most part. Ukraine would hand over the eastern Donbass region, the majority of which is still currently occupied by Russia, as well as Crimea, which Russia illegally annexed in 2014. That means Putin would essentially get to keep a bunch of the land that he invaded if what he has proposed is agreed to. President Trump signaled today that at least some Ukrainian territory may remain in Russian hands when all of this is said and done.
It's very complicated, but we're going to get some back. We're going to get some switched. There'll be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both.
The president didn't go into detail on what this swap would involve. We'll likely learn much of that over the next 7 days as this meeting gets set to take place. But it comes as the administration has been trying to get European allies on board with the plan. One leader we have yet to hear from since this announcement from President Trump is Ukraine's.
Zelensky wants to see peace. Now, President Zelensky has to get all of his everything he needs because he's going to have to get ready to sign something, and I think he is working hard to get that done.
Of course, the last time Zelensky, quote, had to get ready to sign something, it triggered a major blow-up between Trump and Zelensky inside the Oval Office over that minerals deal. One thing that has been clear inside the White House this week is just how unsettled a lot of this still is. Even if this meeting goes forward and we see what happens in this historic summit, Russia has a history of not honoring agreements that it makes with other world leaders when it comes to invading other nations. And President Trump says, though, that he feels confident this time could be different.
I think my instinct really tells me that we have a shot at it, okay? And you'll find that out later on, and maybe even today, but we have a shot at it.
My lead source tonight is John Bolton, President Trump's national security advisor in his first term, who knows both of these men very well. And Ambassador Bolton, it's great to have you here. I mean, you were in the room in 2018 in Helsinki when this happened. What do you make of the fact that Putin has now been invited to Alaska?
Well, it's very gracious of Putin to come to former Russian America for this summit. This is not quite as bad as Trump inviting the Taliban to Camp David to talk about the peace negotiations in Afghanistan, but it certainly reminds one of that. The only better place for Putin than Alaska would be if the summit were being held in Moscow. So the initial setup, I think, is a great victory for Putin. He's a rogue leader of a pariah state, and he's going to be welcomed into the United States. Second, I have a feeling this is sliding very quickly in Russia's direction. We're not quite back at February the 28th in the Oval Office when Trump told Zelensky, you don't have any cards. But what's happening is that Russia and the United States are discussing what terms they're going to present to Zelensky. And it may well be that Zelensky has no choice here. Surrendering is always one way to get a peace deal. And it seems to me, you listen to Trump talking about how things are progressing, that even without the meeting, Putin's got his old magic back with Trump. And all that disappointment, all that outrage, so on and so forth. Now you're talking about a deal between Trump and Putin. Think of the press that will get. I have to say, from the strategic perspective, from the U.S. interest perspective, this was not a good day.
Well, I mean, obviously the question had been where to meet. There was discussion in the Middle East. Obviously, Putin can't go to Europe or he would get arrested because of the ICC warrant. Just the fact that he's coming to the United States. I mean, he has not been to the United States in 10 years when he met with President Obama at the United Nations. Before that, obviously, there was a meeting with another president that you also served under. That was George W. Bush, 5 times on U.S. soil, obviously long before he invaded Ukraine. And that was when Bush had that infamous quote where he said, quote, "I looked the man in the eye. I found him very straightforward and trustworthy. I was able to get a sense of his soul." Obviously, that quote did not age well. What would your advice be to the person who's serving in the position that you used to be in, Secretary of State Rubio? He's the interim national security advisor right now.
Yeah. Well, by the way, they could have met in Geneva or Vienna. They're basically considered UN cities, and the ICC warrant could have been waived, and I don't think anybody would have objected, frankly. Look, if Trump really wanted to get an equitable peace deal here, he could certainly listen to what Putin had to say. But they're doing a lot more than listening. They could receive the material and send it to Zelensky and hear what he thought of it first. This sounds an awful lot from what we know publicly, and certainly we may not know at all, of the quote-unquote peace plan that J.D. Vance proposed in the fall of last year during the campaign, where essentially Russia keeps all the territory it currently holds, a demilitarized zone, maybe with a peacekeeping force on the Ukrainian side, is set up, and Ukraine pledges not to join NATO. If Ukraine agrees to a ceasefire here, it's agreeing to its new border with Russia effectively. I think this is a very dangerous point for Zelensky and the Ukrainian government.
Ambassador Bolton, I have a feeling we will be talking a lot over the next week. Thank you for joining us tonight to start us off. Also here tonight, all my experts on all things Trump and Putin. And David Sanger from the New York Times, you're here with us. One, I just wonder what your latest reporting is on kind of what the guidelines or basis of this summit are going to look like. We know what Trump wants. He wants this war to end. Now that he's secured this meeting with the Russian leader, what are your expectations and what are you hearing tonight?
Well, I agree with Ambassador Bolton that this is a pretty dangerous moment for the Ukrainians. It may even be a risky moment for President Trump here. So, first of all, remember the old phrase during the Biden years, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine? Well, this is a meeting that's going to take place without Ukraine. And the question is President Trump going to make a deal behind Ukraine's back? Or is he going to go in with a set of parameters that he's discussed with President Zelensky and know what he can't do or what Zelensky couldn't do? It's not a surprise, Caitlin, that the Ukrainians are going to have to give up some land here. But the question is, do they give up land because they have decided that's a worthwhile swap? And what do they get in return? And what we haven't heard yet at all is whether President Trump is going to insist that they get anything in return at all. I mean, the two big issues have been that the Russians want to make sure that Ukraine has a limited ability to defend itself, a limited amount of arms coming from the West. We don't know if that's part of the deal or not. He wants to make sure that Ukraine never joins NATO and that NATO lines sort of go back to where they were 15 years or more ago. We don't know if the president's willing to go do that, but early in the administration, they gave up on NATO membership for Ukraine.
Yeah, and Jill, obviously, as our Kremlin expert, what is Putin's mindset going to be going into this? I mean, we have a pretty good idea based on, what David just laid out there of what he wants and just how expansive he's viewing what he wants to get out of this. But what do you make of how they're approaching coming to the United States for the first time in over a decade?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure that he's thrilled. He's got a meeting with the American president. That is something that he has always wanted. It's something that puts him on the international stage as an equal with the United States president. And they're meeting in Alaska. And the irony, as Ambassador Bolton mentioned, that used to belong to Russia. I mean, this is really very ironic. Alaska was part of Russia. I don't know whether Putin will ask for it back, but it is, that's striking. No Zelensky, territorial concessions by Ukraine. And remember yesterday, the big story was, what about sanctions? What will he do? What's going to happen? Sanctions are really off the table. I mean, they did sanction India, but basically, that discussion is over. So I think Putin goes in a good mood. And as usual, with the way the Russians negotiate, he will push for every single thing he can.
Yeah. And Simon Schuster, I mean, you just wrote this story today about the back channel that paved the way for this to happen, because obviously, there were questions about conversations and what this was going to look like. This has come together in like 48 hours. I mean, we found out about truly, I think it was on Wednesday, that this offer had been made. They were going to try to set something up. One, it's kind of shocking even to White House officials how quickly this came together. But you talk about how the authoritarian leader of Belarus, a strong ally of Putin's, Lukashenko, was a huge key in getting to this point.
That's right. It looked like this has all come together in the last 48 hours, but in reality, it's taken months. So I went to Belarus and interviewed Putin's best friend in the world, his closest ally, Alexander Lukashenko, and he explained to me this back channel. So it's been working for a few months now, since at least February, with a number of Trump administration officials coming to Belarus to meet with Putin's close ally to talk about what could a summit look like between Trump and Putin. What would be the conditions? And all those signals were reaching the White House, and they were doing a couple things. One thing was delaying Trump from imposing sanctions, getting tough on Putin, because the Russians and their ally Lukashenko in Belarus were signaling to the White House, no, Putin wants peace. Don't pay attention to all those bombings of civilian neighborhoods in Ukraine. Putin wants peace. He wants to talk. So that was delaying Trump. It was creating hope in the White House that a peace deal could happen. And why did this happen now, this summit? It's because Trump did finally get sick of it and got tough. He imposed sanctions. He began to bring that economic pain on the Russians, and then they raised their hands and said, oh yes, let's have a summit. Let's meet, let's talk about it, let's make a deal. And then again, Trump backed off.
Do you think they're just buying time here, though, by arranging a summit?
That's what they've been doing for months. I mean, in order for Putin and the Russian military to conduct their summer offensive that has allowed them to make plotting difficult but still significant gains in territory in Ukraine, they needed that time. And Putin has been buying himself time by telling Trump, don't worry, we're going to get to a deal. Russia wants peace.
Yeah, it's excellent exclusive reporting. Everyone should read it and to get an understanding going into the summit of what this is going to look like. But David, I wonder, Marco Rubio is not a stranger to Putin's ways or what his attempts are. I wonder if you think that the president's top national security aides are going into this with a clear view of how Putin operates and what that's going to look like, and if he is trying to just buy time here.
I think that there's clearly concern on Mr. Rubio's part. All you have to do is listen to his public statements about this. I think he's concerned that this was timed well by Putin to try to put off those sanctions. Putin's clearly got an attack plan on Ukraine that's playing its way out, and presumably in the fall he wants to move on to try to get the areas around Odessa and the ports. Now, maybe that'll get cut short by an agreement here. But if the world community comes out and basically gives Putin an acknowledgement from the U.S. and others that he now has Crimea, that he now has this section of the Donbass where the fighting has gone on. Not that it will be resolved later on in the exact borders, but that he has it now. Well, then his aggression will have been rewarded. It will. The rule will be that, if you go out and try to invade a country, even after all the lessons of World War II, you can seize territory, and ultimately you can get the world to recognize that.